Alright, so this is just a quick little. I can't sleep, so I'm up, and I was uh, up, and the repo's done. Here, it's for now. For my use case, it's pretty much done. Um, I do have now. I actually have some things to talk about. We'll do another series on machine learning coming up. There's actual information, and there has been some new model architectures that we can take a look at. The S4 and the mom. That was hopefully that didn't completely screw up the audio, but the jeez. Okay. Mamba and S4 are, they're sort of talked about now, but they require longer training sessions and more data, which more data is pretty much not acceptable at this point for large language models because we have no more data. We're out of data. We've run out of uh, text generated by human beings. We got to start working on synthetic data. But these new things are coming out. Maybe I'll do a video on that. I know I haven't actually posted a video in maybe like half a year. So that does need to change. But I did just want to put out something just to get me back in the swing of things. The GitHub for object detection is um, available, and it has always been available. It never really went anywhere, but it's been updated and it now has the YOLO V8 folder with pretty much anything you could possibly need when running, when trying to create a, we're trying to train, download, save, whatever you want to do with Ultralytics YOLO V8. There is an autodistill folder for running autodistill so that you can create a distilled model or auto labeling. I say in theory because you do need to go class at a time, and it is a little bit finicky, but not really. As I was saying, I guess I wasn't saying. I would say grounding Dino is about 99. I said 1 out of every 100 images need some tweaking. Grounding Sam, I would say maybe 10 out of every 100 need to be labeled. The grounding SAM is a segmentation, so a lot of times these segmented images contain go outside of the image, go outside of the object, and maybe have too many segments or other things like that. It's a more complicated task, so I think it is reasonable that it is worse. And for such a painful process as annotating segmentation data, this is pretty much a godsend. So you 10 out of every 100 is completely worth it, and 1 out of every 100 for grounding Dino is almost perfect. But I find that if you have more, if it only really is at that level if you're doing one detection in the ontology. And so let's just go through this um, so that you can run it. We have the auto distill, that is how you auto label. We have the utils folder, that is how you easily scrape. We can run this. It basically runs as a macro. I will run this now that the training is completed, and you can see for yourself. So there you go. It opens up a page and it goes through. I don't want to actually do anything like that, so I deleted it. So I stopped it. But it is pretty basic and it works very well. I have one for Google images and I have one for Yandex images. I find Yandex to be my favorite non-Google search engine. Um, I have said before and I will say again that DuckDuckGo is the feds. They're no better than Google. They do not do anything different than Google does. I'm not convinced they're not, using your data for financial purposes. They censor the results, the search results, which is once you're censoring search results, you're the feds. You're no longer for the people anymore, and it's not, you're not, you ain't gang, homie. And that just, that's textbook op behavior, for lack of a better term. Yandex, as I have just tested, does not seem to censor, even though, and that's why I have gay clown Putin. It is some supposedly a Russian uh, made um, search engine, but this is supposedly illegal in Russia, and here it is. It's right here. If there was an image that was illegal in the United States, you would not be able to search it and find it in Google. You can't. I mean, for not that that's a bad thing, right? I can't think of anything that's acceptable that is legal. And I'm using the word acceptable just so that people don't freak out. But what we haven't defined morality, so I'm not sure what is and what isn't acceptable. People give their answers about hurting people and whatnot, but we hurt people all the time, and what hurts one may not hurt someone else. So who is the person that we are not hurting? There's just a whole thing to it, and you no one people think that there's some kind of natural reason for why some things are allowed and some things aren't, but there really isn't. And anyone that pretends to have some kind of idea of what's right or wrong is the feds, unless you're religious, because supposedly God Himself made those rules. And if other than that, if you're not following the rules that God Himself made, then you're just making stuff up, and it's completely arbitrary. If God is real, which that's up to you to decide. So I don't know. It's either that or nothing is the way I see it, but no one else sees it that way. So it's fine. Whatever, you do what you want. But Yandex does give pretty good results, better than Google for images, I think, more specific and more related to the topic at hand, in my personal opinion. So the only thing, if you don't want to use Yandex or Google, the only thing you'd have to change are the elements and the keys. And to find those, we can just go here. You do have to inspect, which is kind of annoying. So you just I guess we should do one that isn't Google or Yandex. We can go DuckDuckGo, which again, DuckDuckGo is the feds. Tired of being tracked online. The browser's track. Like, it's just it's complete. It's whatever. Anyway, and then there's cookie. They're tracking your stuff. Like, you can't avoid that. So I don't know what they're even pretending to offer. But you have to inspect the source. It's not that hard. Just go where you want. We want the search bar, because first we have to find the search bar and enter text into the search bar. It looks like it's here. There's a div, so you go down, and then here we go, and then you go in here, and there we go, and that's not right. Here we go. There we go. Okay, so there, and then there's the form. That's search form role class header search box. You can search. You can, either go by class. You could probably go by role. You could go by ID. I'd probably go by ID. Is probably what I would do. I'd search by ID. ID and class should be unique. So either one of those should be fine. But yeah, what did I do? Element, find element name, text. So we would do element by name. Uh, yeah, I'd probably go by ID is what I would do for DuckDuckGo. I'd probably go by ID, but you can see Yandex is a little bit different. Um, when we inspect here, we'll find that it's just set up different. It's a different website, so you're free to call things whatever you want, even in Russia, surprisingly. So there you go. Form class, div class, span, input. Type name, name, ID, and class should be unique. I don't think I went that deep here actually, so we could have gone deeper, and you probably find name is T. Okay, so in this case, you get name T. Name here is probably Q. Okay, name is Q, and that is what Google does as well, I think, for query. So that's pretty similar to, we can open up Google's. Yeah, so this is find element by name Q, whatever. So that's what you want to do, change those. And then once you know, make the search, whatever, cocoa with marshmallows, then you have to find where the images are. So here in this case, as you can see, it's nothing serious. You just go through here and just kind of look at the code. It's not that hard. You can do it. In here, so there you go. So then there's the row, and this goes rows. Google just doesn't do rows. Google just goes individual image. So it's the same idea. This. So once you get to the image, you then want to find what makes this an image, and the class is you want to go down to the image tag. A is for links. You can actually do either one. You could either get the link and try and work with that, or you could get the image and go to the image tag and get the source. Either way, they're incomplete URLs, so I think I did have to add something else before then for Yandex. I guess I didn't. So elements by name, image. So I went to the image, and then it gets the source right here. So this is a little, and the source, image, source, there you go. I guess it's smart enough to add the HTTPS. I am surprised that it does that. But yeah. In this case, it saves everything as a JPEG, whether it is or it isn't. And if it's not, it probably won't be able to download it unless it can be converted to a JPEG. So I think PNGs and GIFs, you can save them as JPEGs and be all right. I think. Maybe not, but I haven't had trouble with leaving it as JPEG. If you want, you could if you want, you could then, for each element in there, you could, find the type, and then save the type accordingly. You'd have to put a switch statement in there. It'd be too much work, so don't do that. So that is how we scrape the images, and once we scrape the images, they are saved to some folder, wherever you specify. In this case, I just put the path here. I could probably make this a variable if I wanted to, but it really doesn't make a difference. So that's where they're saved. Obviously, you'd have to change that to save where you would want them to save. And once you have saved those images, then I will run autodistill. This is what I would do. I run autodistill to annotate those images, and you also can trade a distilled model to get good at just detecting those things in the ontology that you want to annotate. Unfortunately, as I said before, I find that any more than single class definition or class mapping in the ontology gives terrible results. It gets confused, and it goes from maybe 1 out of every 100 with grounding Dino to like 20 out of every 100. So it ends up being faster to just run the same set through twice instead of having two, and that exponentiates with the more classes you have. So I would say if you have 3 classes, it then goes to like 70 out of 100. It just gets terrible. And with the grounding SAM, forget it. It becomes useless at that point. So one at a time, I get the best results, and then it trains a distilled model that gets saved. You can pick the N or whatever you want, and you can change this path to be the path of the model that you just trained. So you can improve it class by class. So you can go one class and slowly get it better at making detections if you want. What I end up doing is getting the auto label data set and then training a different model on its own, just so that I have more control over what I am actually training. And that gives me an opportunity, excuse me, to review the data set. If you do this method, then you're kind of stuck with the annotations that it had made. And as I said before, if you're using grounding Dino, 1 out of every 100 of them are pretty bad. So it ends up being faster to just get the auto label data set and train a separate YOLO model with your own, parameters and whatnot, which is in the YOLO V8 folder. But what I do is when I start with a new detection task, I will end up using the model that the distilled model as the starting point, and I find that works pretty well. So for this, once you have the data set from the scraping, you should then change the paths to fit your use case, and you then can select one of the models that AutoDistill provides, and they have quite a few available. I haven't tried DETIC, and that's the first one, so it might be the best. I've done SAM, Dino, Lava, Google Vision, and that's it. I didn't even try Clip. I probably should have tried Clip, but I didn't. SAM Clip. This is segmentation. We don't want that really. So, yeah, pretty good. Okay. So once you have your labeled data set, then you want to head over to the YOLO V8 folder. And in here, I have pretty much everything you need to train, save, instantiate, quantize, and benchmark, test, evaluate your YOLO V8 model. The quantization is int8 quantization, but the YOLO V8N is 22 megabytes. So if you need more, if you need less, if you need to compress the model, or quantize the model to be smaller than 22 megabytes, the int8 brings it down to about 13, I think. And then if you wanted int4, it would be a kind of a process. It's not available through the NNCF as a default, but that probably would bring it down to about 8, I would imagine. Which is tiny. An 8 megabyte model. I mean, that's the worst large language model that I've used was like 7 gigabytes. So these are not generating text, so it's less. I don't know if it's less of a complicated task, less data, and not really though, because it's just doing a different thing. You don't need to have a vector space of word embeddings and things like that. It's a little bit different. So it's a smaller model. But if you are doing machine learning or deep learning kind of tasks, I'd imagine that 22 megabytes is well within reason, and 13 megabytes is almost laughable. That's like that. That's how much the file of without the model itself. That's just the file is already of some of these large language models is already like 2 GB. So you should be able to handle that just fine. All right, so you want to start with the model train file here, and this is going to allow you to download the dataset from RoboFlow and train your model, your Ultralytics model, with the RoboFlow generated dataset. Do you have to use RoboFlow? Kind of. Not really, though. You just have to make sure that your dataset is set up to work with YOLO V8. And what that means is that you properly set up the YAML file, which is not that hard to set up, but it should be set up in this way. You don't need this, but you do need to tell it where the test, train, and validation folders are. You do need to define the class names, and you should have a number count here as well. This you could probably delete, be fine. Why do I use RoboFlow? Because it is a singular place to do annotations, and it does generate the annotations files, which is pretty useful. Uh, if you don't use RoboFlow, you will have to, or the labels, I guess, you'll have to create these files. So for every image, you'll have to get the bounding box coordinates and the class number, which is ridiculous. I don't think anyone is doing that or has done that since in the past 10 years. I think those days are over. Praise Jah. So that is that. This is a straight copy and paste from Google if you go, or from RoboFlow if you go to the RoboFlow website. Here, when you export the dataset and you ask to see the downloaded code, it'll give you a code snippet, and you can copy that and paste it. You don't need to paste the pip install RoboFlow here. That's for a notebook, but it is it's the equivalent of doing an OS dot system or whatever. So just copy and paste that in here, and that's basically all you need. And then to train, this is also we're using Ultralytics, so they give you everything you need. It's a model.train. You just have to define the model as a YOLO model. Best practices are to also, before you do that, to define the base model. So you're supposed to define an actual YOLO V8 and .pt model. You're supposed to do that. You don't have to, but in some cases, it might get confused. I don't know. They say that you're supposed to do that just to make sure that it can handle everything appropriately, and if you see any errors, you'll have more information. I don't know. I didn't do it though. It's fine. So you instantiate the model, and then you ask it to train the model, and you can specify the epochs and the image size. There are quite a few other quargs available. You can check the Ultralytics page for more information on that. YOLO V8 model.train. Alright, here we go. Yeah, so, and where are the quargs? Alright, the arguments. There's a whole bunch. Yeah, you're probably not going to want to mess with any of these. Maybe the momentum. You may have good results messing with the momentum. I find that it could probably be a little bit smaller than it is. It could probably make less jumps. The batch size, yeah, it doesn't really do anything. Image size is important. You want to make sure that stays 640 or whatever you're using it for. Whatever you have, uh, what's that word? Um, what is that word? Whatever you have pre-processed your images to. I've stretched them to 640 by 640, so you want that to match. Um, and you can save checkpoints. That may be useful. Every certain number of epochs, it'll save a model. But really, you just want the best in the last one. Unless you're doing 1,000, if you're doing a lot of epochs, maybe that might be useful. But it's gonna save the best one and the most recent one, which is all you should really need. I don't know why you'd want to use anything other than the best or the most recent. So, but you do have that option. Device, maybe. Maybe. You can set up multiple devices. Again, though, this is a small model. It's not. It's nothing that serious. Workers, you probably don't want to change workers. You do want this, in theory, to match your the amount of threads that your CPU has, or maybe. So, um, this defaults to true, which is good. Uh, yeah, I think learning rate and final learning rate, as well as momentum, may be worth changing. I think the learning rate, even though it's pretty low, I think you could probably put another zero in here, slow it down by 10. I find that it makes a ton of jumps and ends up confusing itself. You can see that in the on the results here. You can see it's doing a lot of big jumps here. You'd probably be better off if you uh, decrease the learning rate, and it'd probably make less. Uh, it'd be a smoother curve potentially. Um, but other than that, yeah, I wouldn't mess with anything in there. So yeah, that is training the model. Um, and then you can export the model as you see fit. This will export it to OpenVINO. There are a few other. There's actually quite a bit of formats you can export it as. Uh, PyTorch, the PT is the smallest, and they get larger as you go from there. Um, if you do want to make it half or int 8, you do have to do the NNCF quantization or some other form of data set quantization so it has an idea of what to reduce in terms of numerical values, because that's how it works. It doesn't shrink all the values. It does some kind of math operation to find out which values are in range, what is a common range, and then of that common range it shrinks those. It's a whole thing. I think I have a video where I explain that. It's not actually, it's complicated uh, if you didn't already know it, but in hindsight it's pretty basic stuff. Then you got the eval here. This is just a single evaluation of the single model and the benchmark. This will compare all of the, and I do have int data is true here, incorrectly actually, because this particular one was not quantized. But if you're in that boat, just make this false. But this will compare all of the formats that you saw here um, for the given quantization, I guess. So if it's not going to quantize the models for you, but it's going to compare all of them and give you the results of how they look. You know, the size, the accuracy, or I don't know about accuracy, but the mean average precision, or whatever you want to call it, or maybe the precision and recall. I think it does a couple of them. Not accuracy though, so maybe it does a PR curve and it'll do the MAP. And then maybe I think that's it, and the size. And so that's a good way to determine which format you want. And it actually saves the best versions of those. So this is pretty good. You definitely want to run benchmark after you train and pick the best version for your use case. I have found though that the PT is always going to be the best. The Onyx though, if you do use the Onyx or OpenVINO, those do allow you to have some further optimization possibilities if you use the OpenVINO module. There's some CPU optimizations that might be useful, but most people are using GPUs. For this particular organization, we were trying to use a CPU, and we switched from that because it was a dumb idea. I don't know who said it was a dumb idea, but somebody did, and they ended up being right. So that's just how it works sometimes. But yeah, the config file you don't even have to mess with. I'm not even using it, but it is there. If you do want to add all the paths to the config file, then you can just import the config file instead of having to change these paths. You could just copy and paste this. Well, not that. Well, yeah, copy and paste this. Copy and paste this, and then replace this. Copy and paste this into the config file, and then import the config file, and then you'll only need to reference the variable name and not the whole path string. That may be useful. It may not be. I found that it wasn't because each file I'm referencing different paths, so I would have to copy this, and there'd be too many, and it didn't make a difference. So that is just me putting something out because I haven't in a while. But what's coming up next is I am doing I'm taking 2 classes now. Well, I'm taking like 5 classes, but 2 of them actually are real classes. The other ones are complete nonsense. Well, I guess I'm taking 3 classes. Well, I'm taking 5 classes. 2 of them are complete garbage. Maybe. Well, maybe one of them is complete garbage. Nah, maybe not. It's a seminar, so I don't know what it is. But I will have, for study purposes, I will be doing a series on machine learning as it relates to my course. And I already did have a machine learning series that I never finished because other things came up. And right now, since I can't sleep, I am going to read this Mamba paper for real, and read the S4 paper for real as well. I think I've already, I did a little skimming of these. And then the Hippo also. These 3 in combination with each other should be the next step for large language models to solve the context length issue, supposedly. Because that is a huge issue. ChatGPT is, I think they nerfed it on purpose, just to, because people want safety, as I've said before. But safety is, kids or people with children or mentally incompetent human beings that they're taking care of need to start restricting the internet, is what needs to happen. And then they need to keep the internet open. We shouldn't be protecting children. They should just not be on the internet. is my personal opinion on that. I can't think of a single reason why a kid needs to be on the internet at all. Um, Ever. Honestly, I don't, until you're maybe, like 16, really. Like, what do you do? Like, even only reason why when you're 16 is because you're going to be 18 soon. So you should probably get a couple years on the internet and exposed to the horrors that is life. But before then, you're not, it's not a, there's nothing on the internet that advances your educational pursuits as a child. You're not like, there's, there's nothing, there's really not. And games, if you're playing games, like you don't need the internet for games. Maybe you need the internet to connect you to other people that are playing, but that is not really the internet. You just need a, I guess you are using the internet to transmit the data, but you're not searching the internet. You don't really have access to the internet if you're playing Xbox Live. Um, and we need to just get over that. And there's, they want to protect against, offensive content, but life is very offensive. And I don't think it's reasonable to, I like to know what is available on the internet personally. I really don't like how ChatGPT or has come out, especially because that requires someone to have to pretend to claim that they know what is acceptable and not acceptable. And no one has that power. You can't tell me, there's nothing that is inherently acceptable or not acceptable. Um, there's just not. People will say like murder is bad, but we kill people all the time. And the same people that say murder, that are like, oh, there's obviously, moral rules that are that are intrinsic to, existence or whatever. That there's some kind of those same people will then advocate for not that I don't know about the same people, but I've heard people will advocate for suicide or not medically assisted suicide or even abortion. Not that I'm for any of this or against any of this. I don't. I personally think you should be free to do whatever the hell you want. But if you say that murder is inherently wrong, but you have times when murder is not wrong, and then you're not making any sense. Those are arbitrary. It's arbitrary. Just because you think that you're really convinced that your ideas are right doesn't mean that they're not made up. It's not a real thing. You're not. There's no real reason why one thing is good and another thing is bad. Yeah, oh, because that one thing hurts people. But any action you do in an economy that's trying to be as close to perfect as it can be, if that's the goal of the economy is to be perfect, which should be the goal of the economy, a perfect economy, any gain is a loss for someone else. So inherently, any action in a perfect system is going to be a loss, is going to hurt someone. So you can't, there's nothing, oh, that hurts people. Everything is going to hurt somebody at some point. So you can't really expect to make everyone happy. That's It's really weird that people think that they have some idea of what that they can define what's right or wrong, but they haven't wrote a book. If you could define what's right or wrong, put the book out, and we can go to your church, dude, and we'll like hell yeah, man, put that book out. I don't like, but no one's put the book out, so I don't like what OpenAI is doing. Uh, they don't have the authority to tell me what is acceptable or not. They do have the right and responsibility to protect themselves, and so I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to limit the results of these models to protect themselves from people complaining, and there's so many ways to get information that people would complain about that they just have to keep chopping the model down until it's going to end up being useless for the common man. But I'm sure if you were a multi-million dollar company, you could ask for unfettered access to some of these models and they'd probably give it to you. So we're going to have centralized powers with more than everyone else in the name of not offending people, which is stupid. Like and that's too bad. That's just too bad. There's nothing. I like, you get offended. I get offended all the time. I mean, it's not that big a deal. Um, uh, I don't think you should concern yourself with that. But that's not here nor there. So I would probably read these papers. These three though, that's the context length. That's what I was talking about. Context length is an issue. So right now, they're even the 32K model, the actual active context length is still like 8,000. Which is just not enough for a real conversation. But this is one method to increase the context length. I think the real solution, though, but doing this requires more data and more time with the S4 and the Mamba. It's longer training and more data, so it's useless. I think the better thing is the reasoning that we were working on with Orca and Tree of Thought. This is the real stuff. This is the real good stuff right here. We want the model to be able to reason, and once it can reason, then it can find the information that it wants. Instead of worrying about context length, we can just save the chat history somewhere, have the model reason, and be like, oh, I don't have this information, and then try and find that information. And I just realized now that is quite the task. If the information isn't something searchable, if the information is with reference to the chat conversation, that's going to require it to go through the conversation history, or it's going to require, some kind of, like putting the conversation in folders so it can be like, oh, that's part of this folder. But either way, that's how we do it. We don't remember everything. We're like, oh, I don't remember that, and then we try and think about how that's related to, and sometimes we don't. All the time, having conversations with people, and we forget what we're talking about, and we move on, and it's fine. In fact, that's how you know it's a good conversation. If you're talking with somebody and you forget what you're talking about, like, they're kind of the homie. Like, you don't do that with people you don't fuck with. Like, if you don't like someone and you forget what they're talking about, like, that's the end of the conversation. We're done. We're moving on. So I don't think context length is the answer, but it might be helpful, and it is definitely a new architecture. So that's something exciting, and worth looking into. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna read these now, and I don't know if I'll do a video on this soon, but a video this week for sure, 100%. No nonsense. Not this week. Maybe this week, depending on something on machine learning, the basics. Maybe I'll do loss functions or evaluation metrics, something of that nature. And those will be the videos coming out from here on out. They'll be basic, introductory, like I had before on my channel, which I'd never completed. But I do have let's see, when was that? October 6th. Lord of mercy. I do have a Understanding the Basics of Large Language Models series with 2 videos and a train and fine tune models with custom data sets with 1 video. I probably should add to that. You should probably add the object detection to that as well. But this is bare bones, and really this is fine tuned for the specific use case. It's not really ready and I'm not actually doing anything here. I'm just calling functions that were created by somebody else. There's not really much to talk about. I guess I could do this by hand, but I'm not going to, unless I really want 4-bit. If 4-bit quantization becomes something I want, then I'll have to, actually do some stuff, and then I might make a video on that because I'd want to remember how I did it, because usually that's what happens. That's really why I make these videos, because before I do stuff and I forget how I did it, and then I'd like be like, damn. Um, wow, so people are watching these. That's cool. Aniki Bottle, thank you, my guy. Thank you, my guy. That's why I put those Risk 5 videos out, because I couldn't find anything on Risk 5. So that's basically when I put a video out. That's why I haven't done the Auto GPT or the what's the other one? Um, because there's tons of videos out on those, and they're good. I watched those and I used them and it was fine. If I can't find a video on an installation, I'll make it myself, and that's what I've been doing. It kind of worked. People seem to like it. But going forward, I'm going to do videos on the actual topics that I am learning in class that don't seem to have videos. There don't seem to be many videos on the basics of machine learning terminology in a digestible format that I can understand, because I don't have that many flops. I ain't got the flops. I just ain't got the flops, my guy. But I try. So that's what I got for this stream. I don't know how long this has been going on. Probably like an hour. Almost an hour. So I am fat right now. We're just gonna have to accept that. I'm not doing too much in terms of exercise. If anyone cares. I'm keeping it super chill. I'm going to the gym maybe twice a week, and then I do some stretches on my off days. And maybe a little more than stretch. I think I did some push-ups, and I like punched the air for 5 minutes or something today. So that's why I'm fat. Just I don't know how long I'm going to be fat, but maybe for an extended period of time. Maybe forever, really. I just don't know. But I'm not going too hard. And even in videos, I'm trying to tone it down on the. I was trying too hard with too little results. So I'm trying to find another way to figure things out. Haven't really been able to. So if you got any suggestions, please put them in the comments. How do I get my life together? I don't know. There's a lot of facets to that. So yeah, I did have a good winter break. I got to feel feelings. I don't know if you felt feelings. I definitely recommend it. Feeling feelings is pretty good. It's just like how they write about in the songs and stuff. It's just like that. So I recommend it. 10 out of 10. Go feel some feelings if you haven't felt feelings before. Um, or even if you have, you probably forgot, because they're pretty good. Feelings are um, definitely, I understand. It's if it's true that a certain half the population is feeling feelings all the time, then that explains everything that's going on, because there's a lot of feelings to feel. They're very powerful. Feelings are. So, that's too bad if you're feeling feelings all the time. I'm sorry. But also, thank you, because those are good. We need those. So I appreciate that. Thanks for feeling feelings out there. Sorry if other people don't feel feelings the same way you feel feelings. Um, but you kind of are worse off feeling feelings all the time, than if you just didn't feel feelings all the time. But someone does have to feel feelings, so that's just how it is. It's not fair, but that's how it goes. So I appreciate it. Um, we'll see how that goes. Opinions have shifted. That's too bad. So that is all I have to say. Um, yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and annotate. They're not annotate, do some highlight and read this. Hopefully, I can go to sleep. But yeah, more videos coming. I promise you. There'll be a lot more. My class load's pretty light because these are topics that I'm interested in. Last semester was a mess because it was just too damn boring. If you are going to study computer science, just be aware that it's a waste of time. And if you're going to study computer science, you need to study electrical engineering or computer engineering, and do something else is what I would recommend. Um, then you can do well in the other classes and just forget about the algorithms and all that other nonsense. It is kind of important. Data structures are important, but they're important in such a, like, they are important, but you need to, they're, uh, man, what is it like? I'd say it's like oil in a car. Like like you don't like if you knew how to make or formulate your own oil formula, like fine, your car will run better, I guess. But like you can just pick up the oil that you can pick up the synthetic, or you can pick up the non-synthetic, or you can do a blended. Anything more than that, and you're getting ridiculous. The performance might improve significantly, maybe, but at what cost? At what cost? It's I think it's like oil in a car. Really, they got the oil for you. It's sure it's good to know how the oil is made, but they already have. You can just pick the oil that already exists. But it's actually more important than that because before when I was doing programming, I wasn't using data structures at all. But it is good to organize data that you have in a way that is retrievable and storable efficiently. How important? Very important. Actually, it's hard to explain, but it has nothing to do with the actual task at hand. Like you're trying to, you know, make a program that picks the best workout for a given day. Well, you have to store the workouts. You have to be able to add workouts. You have to be able to retrieve workouts. You have to be able to, remember that you retrieved that workout at this time and all that. And that's all data structure stuff. But that's like way in the back end and has nothing to do. It's boring for me. I think it's boring. I just don't like it. I'm not trying to rationalize it like it makes sense why I don't like it. I don't like it. That's what it is. I don't like it. It's not that interesting. Terrible. But it does matter, and I do appreciate it. Though I was looking at it, it was good stuff. It was good stuff. Just not my cup of tea. I just don't have the flops for it. That's on me. That's on me. That's not on the course or nothing like that. But I'm not doing that anymore, so that's good. So this shouldn't be too bad. So there will be more videos. That's all I got to say. It's 3 in the morning for some reason. It was like 20 minutes ago. But that's how it goes. I'm not gonna sleep today. Tomorrow I have to. Jesus Christ, they're trying to kick me out of this school here. People don't like me. This is how it goes. But wish me the best, and I wish you the best. May we have what we are looking for. Peace.